After the age of 60, there are 5 things you need to have in your life. I'm already well into my 80s, and if the passing years have taught me anything, it's this. Life becomes far less complicated once you discover what truly deserves your attention. When I was younger, I thought success meant accumulating more money, more accomplishments, more possessions, more recognition, and more evidence that I was ahead of everyone else. I spent years chasing ambitions, overcoming obstacles, and constantly thinking about what came next. Like so many people, I believed fulfillment was waiting at the next achievement. But time has a way of revealing the truth. As the decades went by, I saw physically strong people lose their strength. I saw wealthy individuals struggle with loneliness. I saw brilliant minds become consumed by resentment. At the same time, I watched ordinary people find deep contentment, while others who appeared to have everything never seemed satisfied. After witnessing so many different journeys, I came to understand that only a handful of things truly determine whether your later years are marked by comfort, dignity, and genuine happiness. That's why today I want to talk about the 5 things you absolutely need after 60. Not because I read them in a book, not because an expert created a checklist, but because I've lived long enough to see the difference these things make in people's lives. The first thing you need is your health. Now, I'm not talking about looking or feeling 20 years old again. That stage of life belongs in the past. What I mean is having enough health to remain independent, enough strength to get through your day without relying on others, enough energy to enjoy your life, enough mobility to care for yourself and spend time doing what you love. When we're young, most of us barely think about our health. We wake up, move around, carry things, climb stairs, and assume our bodies will always cooperate. We rarely stop to appreciate how extraordinary it is simply to function without pain. Then gradually, age starts collecting its dues. A knee begins to ache. Your back stiffens. Your balance changes. Recovery takes longer than it used to. Tasks that once felt effortless suddenly demand energy and patience. Years ago, I met an old friend who was far more successful financially than I was. He owned properties, had substantial investments, and never worried about money. By every conventional measure, he had achieved tremendous success. But his health had declined dramatically. Travel was no longer possible for him. Even short walks became difficult. Much of his life revolved around doctor visits, medications, and physical limitations. One day he said something I've never forgotten. I'd give away half of everything I own just to feel comfortable in my body again. At the time, his words surprised me. Today, they make perfect sense. Money can purchase treatment. It can provide assistance. It can create comfort. But there are freedoms that only good health can offer. The freedom to move where you want. The freedom to live without constant discomfort. The freedom to enjoy a family gathering, an evening walk, or a beautiful sunrise without your body getting in the way. I've noticed that many people spend their younger years sacrificing their health to build wealth, only to spend their later years sacrificing their wealth trying to reclaim their health. That exchange rarely ends well. After 60, every healthy day becomes precious. Waking up feeling reasonably strong and capable is something to be grateful for. Some of the happiest older individuals I've ever met weren't the richest or the most accomplished. They were simply healthy enough to enjoy everyday life. And when you can truly appreciate ordinary life, it becomes far more valuable than most people realize. The second thing you need is enough money. Notice I didn't say enormous wealth. I didn't say luxury. I didn't say millions in the bank. I said enough. There's a significant difference. Many people spend their lives believing that peace will arrive once they earn a little more, but the finish line keeps moving. The more they acquire, the more they feel they need. Eventually, however, age forces an important question. How much is actually enough? I've known retirees with modest savings who lived calm, meaningful lives. I've also known people with far greater resources who spent their days anxious about losing what they had. One group slept peacefully, the other didn't. The difference wasn't their wealth, it was their relationship with money. When you're younger, money often represents ambition, growth, and possibility. Later in life, its purpose changes. It becomes security. It becomes flexibility. It becomes the ability to face unexpected challenges without fear. A medical expense appears. A repair is suddenly needed. An emergency arrives without warning. Life never completely stops surprising us. Having enough financial stability turns these situations into manageable problems rather than overwhelming crises. I learned this by watching older generations before me. The people who experienced the least stress in retirement weren't always the wealthiest. They were the ones who prepared. They had enough. They understood that financial stability often creates emotional stability, and emotional stability becomes increasingly valuable with age. The reality is that many of life's most meaningful moments cost very little. A heartfelt conversation, a quiet meal, time with loved ones, watching grandchildren grow, sitting peacefully and appreciating another day. These experiences can't be bought, yet having enough money allows you to enjoy them without constant worry hanging over your head. That's why financial peace matters far more than financial status. One brings comfort. The other merely impresses people who aren't living your life. As I got older, I stopped admiring people for what they owned. I started admiring people for the calmness with which they lived. Because true wealth isn't measured by the size of your account. It's measured by the amount of worry that's missing from your mind. And that brings us to the third thing you need after 60. The third thing is having genuine people in your life. Not dozens of people, not a massive social circle. Just a few people who are truly real. As the years pass, you begin to notice something important about relationships. Some people are around when everything is going well. Some disappear the moment life becomes difficult. And a small number stay because they genuinely care. When I was younger, I believed having lots of connections meant security. I thought being surrounded by people meant I would never feel alone. Age taught me otherwise. A crowded room can still feel empty if nobody truly understands you. There was a period in my life when I had countless acquaintances. There were social gatherings, conversations, invitations, and plenty of friendly faces. From the outside, everything looked vibrant. But when I went through a difficult chapter personally, most of those people quietly vanished. That experience taught me a lesson I never forgot. Presence is not the same thing as loyalty. After that, I stopped counting how many friends I had. Instead, I asked myself a different question. Who would still be there when life became difficult? The answer was small, but it was enough. After 60, you don't need endless social activity. You need emotional security. You need one or two people you can call without hesitation. People who understand your silence. People who don't disappear when circumstances become inconvenient. Relationships like these aren't built overnight. They're built slowly through trust, honesty, shared experiences, and years of consistency. Sometimes that person is a spouse. Sometimes it's a lifelong friend. Sometimes it's a son or daughter who has grown into a compassionate adult. And sometimes it's someone unexpected who simply stayed when others walked away. I've learned that one sincere person can bring more comfort than 100 superficial relationships. Because loneliness isn't always about being alone. Sometimes it's about feeling invisible while surrounded by people. That's why genuine companionship becomes one of life's greatest protections. It shields your heart from emptiness. It protects your mind from isolation. And it adds meaning to ordinary days. The fourth thing you need is inner peace. Not temporary distraction, not entertainment, not simply staying busy. I'm talking about a deeper peace that remains even when life isn't perfect. As I grew older, I realized how much energy I once wasted carrying things that no longer mattered. Old regrets, past mistakes, conversations I wished had gone differently, decisions I wished I could undo. Eventually, I had to ask myself, why am I still carrying all of this? The past doesn't change because we revisit it repeatedly. The future doesn't improve because we worry endlessly about it. Yet many people spend their lives trapped between yesterday and tomorrow, rarely enjoying today. Inner peace begins when you stop fighting battles that can't be won. It grows when you forgive, not because everyone deserves forgiveness, but because you no longer want to carry resentment. It strengthens when you accept that life was never meant to be perfect. I've met many older people who experienced major disappointments, lost opportunities, broken relationships, dreams that never materialized. Yet the individuals who aged most gracefully weren't those who avoided hardship. They were the ones who stopped allowing hardship to control their present. There is tremendous freedom in letting go, a freedom that arrives quietly but transforms everything. You eventually realize that peace doesn't come from controlling every aspect of life. It comes from releasing what can no longer be controlled. And when that happens, life feels different. Days become lighter, thoughts become calmer. Even solitude becomes peaceful instead of painful. Which brings us to the fifth and final thing you need after 60. The fifth thing is maintaining the ability to direct your own life. The freedom to make your own choices, to decide how you spend your time, to choose what matters to you, to continue having a sense of purpose and direction. Many people slowly surrender this without realizing it. Sometimes health challenges contribute to it. Sometimes family circumstances do. Sometimes it simply happens through habit. But losing your sense of personal control can quietly affect your spirit. I've known older individuals who were healthy, financially secure, and surrounded by people who cared about them. Yet they seemed diminished somehow. When I looked closer, I noticed a common pattern. They no longer felt ownership over their own lives. Others made all the decisions: where they went, what they did, how they spent their days. Even their preferences became secondary to everyone else's convenience. At any age, human beings need to feel that their lives still belong to them. That doesn't require complete independence. It can be something as simple as choosing your daily routine, deciding to take a walk, selecting a book to read, choosing who you spend time with, deciding when to rest. These small choices preserve dignity. They preserve identity. They preserve the feeling that you are still writing your own story. When that remains intact, aging doesn't feel like fading away. It feels like continuing the journey. So as I reflect on these 5 essentials, I offer them not as rules, but as lessons gathered over a lifetime. Health, enough money, genuine companionship, inner peace, and the freedom to shape your own life. These are not luxuries. They are the pillars that support a fulfilling later life. And when even one of them is missing, life after 60 becomes noticeably more difficult. Before we go any further, there's one more insight. I'd like to share about how these 5 elements connect to one another, and why losing one often impacts the others in ways people rarely anticipate. Thank you for spending these moments with me. Your time and attention mean more than you know. Wherever you may be, I wish you health, wisdom, peace, and strength in the years ahead. Take care of yourself, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.